Your portfolio isn't bleeding by accident. You are being hunted. Invisible architects have weaponized your biology to engineer your blind panic and steal your wealth. Before you hit sell and become just another financial corpse, listen closely. The slaughterhouse has a back door, and I'll show you how to escape. Have you ever felt the exact moment your soul leaves your body? It does not happen in a hospital bed. It happens right here, in the dead of night, illuminated only by the sickly, bleeding red glow of a monitor. Your hands are trembling. A cold sweat traces the line of your spine. Your finger hovers over a single, devastating button. Sell at market price. In your mind, a frantic, primal voice is screaming at you to pull the plug, to salvage whatever pathetic scraps are left, convincing you that bleeding out half your life savings is somehow a victory compared to losing it all. You just want the pain to stop. You want to withdraw every last cent, hoard physical gold, and bury it deep underground where this merciless market can never touch you again. If this is the nightmare you are living right now, then congratulations. You are about to complete the final ritual to become the perfect financial corpse in a game meticulously designed to slaughter you. Before you surrender and hit that button, stop. The Wealth Ladder US6 warmly welcomes you to a space of brutal honesty. If you want to survive this financial bloodbath and uncover the dark truths they never want you to know, hit that subscribe button right now to support the channel and give us the fuel to keep exposing these hidden realities. Do not close this video in anger. I am not sitting in some ivory tower judging your panic. I am speaking to you because I am staring directly at the ghost of my former self. Rewind the clock a few years to the pandemic frenzy or the catastrophic collapse of 2022. I was exactly where you are. A blind, arrogant amateur intoxicated by a roaring bull run. Back then, you could throw a dart at a board of garbage stocks in the dark and wake up to a portfolio glowing in profitable green. I was dangerously drunk on the illusion of paper wealth, looking in the mirror and genuinely believing I was a once-in-a-generation investing prodigy. And then, the alarm clock rang. It was not a wake-up call for work. It was the death knell of the market. Every single morning became an exercise in psychological torture. A decade of my blood, sweat, and sacrificed youth evaporated by 5, 7, 10% a day. The naive euphoria of chasing green candles rapidly decomposed into sheer, unadulterated terror. I tasted the sickening irony of suffocating on my own pile of money, watching my so-called net worth wither away hour by hour with absolute powerlessness. Every desperate attempt I made to average down was nothing more than amputating a limb to save a dying body. The harder I held on, the deeper the market chewed into my bones. Do you want to know the darkest, most humiliating moment of it all? It is the exact second the human mind shatters. It was the day the food turned to ash in my mouth. The day I could not even look my own wife and children in the eyes. Utterly broken, I clicked sell all. I willingly butchered 70% of my net worth just to buy a single ounce of peace. But that peace was a cruel illusion that lasted exactly 24 hours. The very next morning, the market reversed and exploded upward. I had cut my losses at the absolute, undeniable bottom. From a man with a future, I had transformed into a willing blood sacrifice, handing over my family's security to the unseen titans of Wall Street. I am ripping open the deepest wound of my life today, not to throw a pity party. I am dragging this ugly truth into the light to tell you one vital thing. Stop blaming yourself. The fact that the market crashed and you are bleeding is not your fault. The blind panic, the suffocating fear, the desperate greed you are feeling right now are not character flaws. They are the intended results of a flawless, centuries-old psychological architecture. The financial markets are flesh-eating entities designed with a single, ruthless purpose: to transfer wealth from the hands of the impatient into the vaults of the disciplined. If you are drowning right now, it is simply because you walked into a slaughterhouse thinking it was a casino. I am throwing you a lifeline today. Once the bleeding stops and your mind clears, we will tear the mask off this market together, ensuring that no institution, no hedge fund, and no invisible hand will ever shear you like a sheep again. To truly understand how easily we are led into that financial slaughterhouse, we must first unmask the invisible architects who engineered the very floor we stand on. The market is not a living, breathing ecosystem that organically reflects the value of human labor and corporate innovation, though that is the fairy tale they teach you in economics class. It is a highly optimized extraction machine. When you log into your brokerage account, you are not trading against other ordinary people sitting in their living rooms. You are walking onto a battlefield armed with a wooden sword, facing off against algorithmic leviathans, quantum computers, and institutional titans who process more data in a microsecond than you will consume in a lifetime. These entities do not feel fear, they do not need sleep, and they certainly do not care about your mortgage or your children's college fund. Their entire existence is predicated on hunting liquidity, and in this brutal ecosystem, your blind panic is their absolute favorite meal. Consider the role of the financial media, the ultimate accomplice in this grand illusion. When the market is at its euphoric peak, when the smart money is quietly exiting through the back door, the media is blaring trumpets of a new economic paradigm. They parade analysts on television who promise that the green candles will reach the moon, intoxicating you with the fear of missing out. They need you to buy the top, so they have someone to sell to. Then, when the cycle inevitably violently fractures, the narrative instantly flips. The same smiling anchors who urged you to mortgage your house for tech stocks suddenly morph into prophets of the apocalypse. They feed you a relentless, suffocating diet of inflation fears, war, and macroeconomic collapse. Why? Because the institutions need to buy back their shares at the lowest possible price, and the only way to drive the price down to the abyss is to terrify you into surrendering your assets for pennies on the dollar. I learned this the hard way, staring at glowing red tickers while the news cycle screamed that the world was ending. I realized that the panic tearing through my chest was not a natural reaction. It was a manufactured emotional response. The game is rigged to make you feel completely isolated, convincing you that the sky is falling exactly when the soil is most fertile for planting. Wall Street operates on a cycle of manufacturing artificial euphoria to distribute their heavy bags to retail investors, followed by manufacturing artificial terror to accumulate those same assets back at a catastrophic discount. You are not a player in their game. You are the capital they are playing with. The moment you recognize this chilling reality, the illusion breaks, and the anger you feel begins to crystallize into the one weapon they fear: clarity. Yet the most terrifying realization is not that these financial architects rigged the game against us, but that they did it by weaponizing our own deeply ingrained biology. Human beings have survived for thousands of years by relying on a very specific set of primal instincts. Seek safety in numbers, run when you sense danger, and gorge on resources when they are abundant. In the wild, this herd mentality kept our ancestors alive. In the financial markets, it is the exact mechanism that guarantees your absolute destruction. When you are watching your portfolio hemorrhage value, your rational brain shuts down. Your amygdala takes over, flooding your nervous system with cortisol and triggering a violent fight-or-flight response. Your body literally cannot tell the difference between a plunging stock chart and a physical predator stalking you in the dark. This biological hijacking is why we do the exact opposite of what logic dictates. Logic says, buy low and sell high. Biology screams at us to buy when everyone else is buying because the herd feels safe, and to sell when everyone else is selling because staying behind feels like certain death. I remember the paralyzing isolation of the bear market. I would scour forums, hoping to find someone, anyone, who was holding on, just to validate my own desperate hope. But fear is a contagion far more infectious than any virus. As you watch strangers online capitulate, as you hear your friends talk about cashing out, the pressure becomes agonizing. The psychological toll of standing alone against the crushing weight of negative sentiment is too much for an untrained mind to bear. You begin to doubt your own sanity. You tell yourself that the market knows something you don't. They use this biological weakness to shear us. Every sudden flash crash, every agonizing sideways consolidation that lasts for months is a deliberate test of human endurance. It is designed to wear down your patience, to make you so utterly exhausted and devoid of hope that you willingly hand over your wealth just to make the mental anguish stop. They know that capital will always flow from the impatient to the patient. By keeping you in a state of chronic anxiety, they ensure you can never develop the long-term vision required to build actual wealth. The pain you feel during a downturn is not just the loss of money. It is the death of your ego, the shattering realization that you are not in control. Until you can observe your own panic as a third party, detaching your heartbeat from the red and green ticks of the screen, you will forever remain a prisoner of your own biology, entirely at the mercy of a system that views your emotional suffering as a profitable metric. Escaping this biological prison and surviving the predatory algorithms requires a radical, almost agonizing rewiring of everything you thought you knew about money and yourself. You have to undergo a total psychological death and rebirth. The amateur I used to be, the one who chased momentum, who refreshed his portfolio 30 times a day, whose mood was dictated by the daily closing bell, had to be brutally eradicated. I had to learn the cold, hard stoicism of the professional. True financial discipline is not about suppressing your emotions. It is about acknowledging the primal scream in your mind and choosing, with ruthless intent, to completely ignore it. It requires forging a mindset so impenetrable that an 80% drop in a heavily researched asset invokes curiosity rather than terror. This transformation begins with severing the emotional tether between your self-worth and your net worth. The market does not know you exist, and it certainly does not owe you a return on your investment. Once you accept the absolute neutrality of the market, you stop viewing red days as personal attacks. You start viewing them as data. I had to rip up my reliance on gut feelings and intuition, replacing them with cold, calculated frameworks. Intuition in the financial markets is a lie, fed to you by lucky gamblers who have not yet been wiped out. Survival requires a rigid, unyielding system. Predefined entry points, pre-calculated risk allocations, and the absolute refusal to deviate from the plan, no matter how loudly the media screams or how far the market plunges. I stopped looking for validation from the herd. I realized that if I felt comfortable with an investment, if my friends and neighbors were all cheering for it, I was already too late. The most profitable decisions I have ever made were the ones that made me physically nauseous to execute. Buying into peak despair, allocating capital when the companies I believed in were being priced for bankruptcy. That is where generational wealth is born. It requires an arrogance that borders on insanity, the willingness to stand in the middle of a burning room and quietly buy the ashes. You must condition yourself to find comfort in extreme discomfort. When you finally build this iron discipline, the market stops being a casino where you pray for a lucky strike and transforms into a vast, predictable landscape where you patiently wait for the inevitable cycles of human stupidity to present you with asymmetric opportunities. You stop bleeding, you stop reacting, and for the first time in your life, you start hunting. Armed with this impenetrable new psychology, you are no longer the market's willing victim. You are finally ready to step back into the flames and forge the blueprint for true generational power. Generational wealth is not about buying Lamborghinis, flexing luxury watches on the internet, or achieving a fleeting status to impress people who do not care about you. It is about buying the ultimate, non-renewable resource: time. It is about constructing a financial fortress so deep and so wide that your children, and your children's children, will never have to compromise their dignity for a paycheck. But to build a fortress that can withstand the centuries, you must use the right materials. You can no longer afford to throw your hard-earned capital at speculative dust or the latest fleeting trend. The blueprint requires an aggressive, unyielding focus on asymmetric risk and structural value. It means hoarding cash not as a savings mechanism to be eaten by inflation, but as a loaded weapon, kept patiently in reserve for the inevitable days when the market bleeds and high-quality assets are thrown into the gutters by terrified retail traders. You wait for the periods of maximum macroeconomic terror. While the rest of the world is liquidating their life savings at the absolute bottom, paralyzed by the illusion of the apocalypse, you step in with cold precision. You accumulate ownership in productive businesses, scarce commodities, and unshakable infrastructure. You become a provider of liquidity when it is most desperate, and in return, the market rewards you with the wealth of 1,000 lifetimes. This path is fiercely lonely. It requires you to sit on your hands for years, enduring the mockery of those getting rich quick in unsustainable bubbles, quietly knowing that you will be the one buying their foreclosed assets when the music stops. I stand before you today not as a guru trying to sell you a fantasy, but as a survivor who crawled out of the financial grave. The path from the panicked amateur hovering over the sell all button to the silent architect of wealth is paved with brutal self-reflection and unrelenting discipline. Do not let your previous losses define you. Let them be the agonizing tuition you paid to finally learn the real rules of the game. Stand up. Shake off the dust. The slaughterhouse only exists for those who refuse to see its walls. The Wealth Ladder US 6 will be here, dissecting the noise, exposing the invisible hands, and walking this path with you. Subscribe, steel your mind, and prepare for the next cycle. The game has just begun, and this time, we are playing to win. To survive and thrive in the modern financial markets, you must first awaken to the reality that the system is meticulously engineered to extract your wealth. The market is not a fair playing field. It is a psychological battleground where institutional algorithms and media narratives weaponize your deeply ingrained biological instincts against you. They manufacture euphoria to make you buy at the top and orchestrate panic to force you into selling at the absolute bottom. Your natural human urge to follow the herd, seeking safety in numbers and fleeing during times of fear, is the exact mechanism that guarantees your financial destruction. Escaping this predatory cycle requires a profound psychological death and rebirth. You must completely sever the emotional tie between your self-worth and your net worth, replacing primal panic with cold, calculated stoicism. True financial liberation is found not in chasing momentum, but in cultivating the iron discipline to step into the flames when the rest of the world is running away. By hoarding cash as a strategic weapon, and waiting patiently for periods of maximum macroeconomic terror, you can acquire high-quality assets at catastrophic discounts. Ultimately, building lasting generational wealth is not about quick profits. It is about buying time, mastering your own mind, and capitalizing on the inevitable cycles of human emotion. You are no longer the prey in their system. You are the architect of your own empire. The greatest threat to your financial survival is not the market, the economy, or institutional manipulation. It is your own, unchecked biology. Wealth is not transferred based on luck or intelligence. It is systematically transferred from the emotionally reactive to the emotionally disciplined. True financial power is realized only when you stop seeking validation from the crowd and learn to find absolute comfort in extreme discomfort. Automate your detachment. When the market violently drops and the news cycle screams catastrophe, step away from your brokerage app. Train your mind to view red numbers purely as data, not as a physical threat to your survival. Build a rigid system. Define your entry points, risk tolerance, and long-term investment goals before you ever allocate a single dollar. Write these rules down. Never let a sudden market crash or a euphoric rally force you to deviate from this pre-calculated plan. Stockpile ammunition. Maintain a strategic reserve of cash. Do not view it as idle money being eaten by inflation, but as a loaded weapon, patiently kept in reserve for the exact moment when terrified retail investors surrender high-quality assets at a massive discount. Invert your instincts. If an investment feels incredibly safe because everyone around you is cheering for it, recognize that you are likely the liquidity for someone else's exit. Train yourself to deploy capital when it feels terrifying but mathematically sound. Looking back at your own journey, what was the hardest moment you ever faced when investing? Did you give in to the panic, or did you hold the line? Please share your story and perspective in the comments below so we can all learn and grow from each other's experiences. If this video opened your eyes and you want to continue mastering the true rules of money, please hit the subscribe button to support the Wealth Ladder US 6. Your subscription gives us the motivation to keep dissecting the noise and creating high-quality content for your financial journey.